Here's an idea. Don't come here then. We're not coming to the US. Actually, many Canadians aren't coming to the US. Tourism to the US from Canada has reached COVID levels. Hello and welcome to my new channel. If you haven't seen my face before, that's because you probably haven't seen my reaction videos. That's completely fine. I've been on YouTube for a while doing reaction videos, but now this is my new channel where I talk about things that I want to talk about, like trolling Maga. So I started trolling Maga on Instagram. I started doing it just because it was funny, really. I initially posted a reel saying that Canada should align more with the UK in terms of our language. So instead of saying aluminum, we should say aluminium. It was a joke post. I wasn't, thinking that I was going to be trolling Maga from it, but then I got a bunch of Maga in my comments being butthurt. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity and I'm going to start to troll Maga. And it's been funny. So I thought I would go through the comments, a lot of the comments that I've been getting since starting this journey, and you talk about it because I just think it's funny. And there's so much misinformation on that side of the political spectrum, might I add.
You are fake news. Sir, go ahead.
It's not even political spectrum, it's country spectrum, because I feel like the rest of the world doesn't matter like how conservative they are. I mean, there are some conservative nut jobs in the UK and Canada, Maple Maga, for example, who do agree with Trump. But I feel like the majority of the world is very anti-Maga, anti-Trump. I might be pulling that out of my ass. I don't know. I haven't polled the entire world, so who am I to make vast judgments on that? But I basically think that most of the world, at least, does not like Maga. Yeah, you can challenge me on that if you want, but if you challenge me in the comments, please provide sources to back up your claims, because I do like sources and I do like, actual research, not pulling shit out of your ass, which Maga tends to do a lot. So, yeah.
We don't need the dairy products.
Wow.
I think he doesn't understand the dairy industry either in the States or Canada.
So I just want to address the elephant in the room, or shall I say the house hippo in the room. If you're Canadian, you will get that reference. The elephant in the room is the tariffs, and there's just been so much misinformation from Maga and Trump about the tariffs from Canada. Canada does have insane tariffs, like incredibly expensive tariffs on certain items, particularly in the dairy industry, but the US has actually never paid those tariffs because the US has never exceeded the quotas needed to pay. It basically has to do with Canada's supply management system in the dairy industry, which essentially protects our dairy farmers. It has been heavily criticized by the US, however, it does, again, protect our dairy farmers. Basically, it just makes sure that the dairy farmers are producing enough product for Canadians and no more. So it doesn't have any extra, essentially. Imagine if the US is a big superstore and Canada is a small mom and pop shop. Canada doesn't want to accept too much trade from the US because it will slow demand for our industry, resulting in layoffs.
When NAFTA was renegotiated during Trump's first term, creating the USMCA, Canada gave up tariff-free access to 3.6% of its highly regulated dairy market to the US. The brothers point out that even though Canada's dairy market is relatively closed off to foreign competitors, the country still imports far more dairy products from the US than Canadian producers sell there.
The US wants Canada to buy more of their product, but Canada doesn't want to because Canada wants to protect its industry. So this claim that the US has been paying Canadian tariffs is absolutely ridiculous, and putting blanket tariffs on Canadian goods is just insane because there are certain items from Canada that the US needs, like potash. Canada supplies about 90% of the US's potash, which is essential for growing food. So without that, much of the US's population will starve, essentially. The US has not been subsidizing Canada, which is another claim that I've been getting in my comments a lot. Yeah, the US doesn't give Canada money. That's just a stupid claim, to be honest. If you come into my comments and claim that the US has been subsidizing Canada, I'm gonna think your brain is the size of a peanut. When it comes to trade, the US purchases Canadian goods and Canada purchases the US's goods. Nobody's just giving countries money here. Now, there is a trade deficit because the US's population is much bigger than Canada, so the US buys more from Canada than Canada buys from the US. But the US is definitely not subsidizing Canada. This rumor would be hilarious if it wasn't so sad, and if it didn't contribute to the xenophobia against Canada and the idea that the US should annex Canada, because all of these rumors are contributing to that narrative.
That your wish for Canada to be the 51st state is a, quote, real thing. Is it a real thing?
Yeah, it is.
The narrative that Canada is the bad guy, thus the US should annex it. And I got a lot of those comments as well. I got a lot of comments saying that Canada should be the 51st state or Canada will be the 51st state, which is not going to happen. It's plainly just not going to happen. Also, if it did become the 51st state, it would be an incredibly liberal state. Like, I don't think Maga understand this. Canada being the 51st state would swing the US's elections Democratic every time. Do you want that, Maga? Do you want that? So I'm gonna go through some more of their comments because I just think it's hilarious. Yes, Canada is so proud right now. With the failed PM and new one just installed, with your little communist mind, you are just glowing. Maga love the term communist and socialist. They throw them out all the time, which is hilarious because it's clear that they don't know what these terms mean. If they did know what they meant, they wouldn't be throwing them out as often as they do. But let's look at the definition of communism. Communism, a theory or system of social organization in which all property is owned by the community and each person contributes and receives according to their ability and needs. So he's applying communism to Mark Carney, which is hilarious because Mark Carney is a banker. He was the governor of the Bank of Canada. He was the governor of the Bank of England. He's a capitalist by definition. So yeah, he is the opposite of a communist. Also, Maga has no self-awareness at all. This has become incredibly clear to me through multiple topics, particularly when it comes to Mark Carney, thinking that Mark Carney was installed and we didn't vote for him, which we did. The Liberal Party of Canada voted for Mark Carney. Maga just can't comprehend that Canada's political system is different than the US's. They can't comprehend that we have a parliamentary democracy, just like the UK does and many other countries do. Canada has a parliamentary democracy. We don't vote for a president. We vote for the MP in our district. In the general election, we vote for a party. We don't vote for a president or a leader. So the Liberal Party of Canada had its elections and Mark Carney won those elections. And anybody could join the Liberal Party. It wasn't, it wasn't a private event or anything. Like, anybody in Canada could have joined the Liberal Party and voted. But Maga just can't seem to comprehend this. And the really sad thing is Maple Maga can't comprehend this as well. It's understandable when someone from a different country doesn't understand your political system, but it's really, really sad when someone who is from your country doesn't understand your political system. An example of this was Gail in my comments. I'm a Canadian and I would be saying I am not a Liberal, I am not NDP, I don't believe in Trudeau or Singh. Carney is not my Prime Minister, he is an unelected mouthpiece for globalism. So I had to reply, Gail, you're too old to not know how our parliamentary democracy works, it's embarrassing for you at this point. And the really sad part is, Gail would have been of voting age when Kim Campbell was elected as Prime Minister in the exact same way that Mark Carney was. Except Kim Campbell was elected the leader of the Conservative Party, so she probably would have been okay with that. There was a lot of comments saying that Canada's not going to survive this tariff war. Did you ever think about the fact that your country isn't going to exist in 5 years? Maybe focus on that instead of embarrassing yourself on the internet? Yeah, Canada will exist in 5 years. Like, this mentality that Canada is on the brink of destruction, that Canada's not going to survive Trump's presidency is insane. Canada is going to exist in 5 years. We are in the process of solidifying new trade deals with new trading partners. The US is alienating itself from the rest of the world. Trump is an anti-globalist. He's trying to bring all manufacturing to the US. He's trying to make everything in the US. And basically, he's trying to make the US completely self-sufficient, which is, good in theory, but in today's world, it just doesn't work. This isn't the 1800s anymore. We live in a very globalized world. The way we live our lives now is completely different to how we lived them 200 years ago, when this anti-globalization would have been more plausible. Trump is simplifying the complexities of trade. Cars alone are made in multiple countries and cross the border multiple times before they're completed.
It's made up of thousands and thousands of parts. Those parts come from over 24 different countries.
Countries like Mexico, Canada, Romania. Trump wants these parts to say made in the US. But moving all of this is not so simple.
To lift and shift that whole thing, that's kind of like saying, oh, pick up the state of Maine and move it over to Wyoming. Could you do it? I suppose you could, but man, it would be tough duty.
Big companies are not going to suddenly start bringing their manufacturing to the US just for a 4-year president. And I know Trump is trying to serve for a 3rd term, but regardless of that fact, it doesn't make sense for these companies to be spending trillions of dollars bringing their manufacturing to the US because of one president. How many Canadians died waiting on care in your free healthcare that you pay for with your super high taxes? Again, the self-awareness is just non-existent with Maga. It's just not existent. I mean, I could go right back and say how many Americans have died from gun violence, and I have the answer to that actually. 45,738 people die by guns in an average year, or rate of 13.7 deaths per 100,000 people. And even when it comes to the knife crime rate, because I know I'll have a lot of Americans in my comments claiming that the UK has a higher knife crime rate than the US, Canada has a higher knife crime rate than the US, the US still has a higher knife crime rate than both Canada and the UK. So I'm just looking at worldpopulationreview.com, and in Canada, the violent crime rate in 2025 is 2.27 per 100,000 people. In the UK, the violent crime rate in 2025 is 1.17 per 100,000 people. In the US, the violent crime rate is 6.38 per 100,000 people. And circling back to healthcare here, because that's where all this started, as many as 44,789 Americans of working age die each year because they lack health insurance. Like, I'm not gonna say that Canada's healthcare is absolutely perfect. Obviously, there is some work that needs to be done there, and you know, that is something that Canadians have been addressing over recent years, but to say that Canada's is worse than the US's is hilarious and insane. Especially when just last year a health insurance CEO was assassinated by a man who would become a vigilante. Also, this is a common myth about US versus Canada tax rates. It's not that cut and dry. Just because you live in the US doesn't mean you're automatically going to pay a lower tax rate than if you were to live in Canada. This is all dependent on where you live in the US, because some states do have zero income tax. But overall, when it comes to the federal level, if you are on a lower income, you are probably going to be paying less tax in Canada than you would be in the US. If you can't deal with freedom, you should live in a totalitarian country. Oh wait, you do. But also, on the World Freedom Index, Canada ranks 97 and the US ranks 84. 100 is the perfect score, by the way, just to be clear. Here's an idea, don't come here then. We're not coming to the US. Actually, many Canadians aren't coming to the US. Tourism to the US from Canada has reached COVID levels. This is a photo that someone took of Toronto Pearson Airport during March break this year. March break is like spring break in Ontario. This is the US departure section, by the way. It's empty, completely empty. Normally during March break, this would be absolutely full. It would be packed because you'd have a ton of people going to Florida, Disney World, other warmer states as well. Yeah, nobody's going to the States. I mean, people are going to the States, but not as many as usual. And I left the best for last because I just find this absolutely hilarious. I had 3 comments assuming this, by the way. 3 comments. And no, they weren't by bots. I actually went to check their Insta profiles. They were human beings asking this or assuming this, which is insane. Insane. There's a reason why 90% of Canada's population lives within 100 miles of the US border. I think Canada needs the US more. LOL. They think the majority of Canada's population lives near the US border because we love the US or we want to be American. It's just, it's hysterical. It's brilliant. So the majority of Canada's population lives near the US border because the rest of our land is uninhabitable. Okay? I thought that was a pretty obvious thing, but apparently it's not. It's not obvious. Americans actually think that we live near the US border because we want to be American. Like, and they're dismantling the Department of Education. So, anyway, I'm just gonna keep making these videos because it's just fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm just gonna keep trolling them and they're just gonna keep commenting and I'm just gonna keep making these videos because, you know, why not? It's gonna be a long 4 years. It's gonna be a long 4 years. Cheers.